Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Kim Noltemy, President and CEO of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Aaron. What a privilege to be here.
Oh, well, I'm so excited to talk with you because there's amazing work being done in Dallas by the orchestra, and that you've really been leading. Obviously, you have a tremendous career as a leader in the arts, but specifically, I was wondering if we could kind of dive right in. Clearly, you have taken on diversity, equity, and inclusion as a critically important factor and part of the work in Dallas. And I think just in 2020, you kind of launched a big initiative related to that also had impact relating to women composers and others. Just wondering if you could give us a little context of that initiative and why you feel this work is important.
Well, when I got to Dallas, one of the things I was most excited about is the diversity of the city on every level, in city leadership, on the government side, and the business community. And then I realized, well, we were lagging significantly in the Dallas Symphony, and that's certainly not true of the entire arts community in Dallas, but I wanted to make sure that we jumped in with everything we had right away, because it takes a lot of time to move forward and build trust in relationships that obviously we didn't have, despite this orchestra's really wonderful history with hiring people of color early on, when maybe people wouldn't have expected that to be happening in Dallas, in the orchestra itself, and starting important programs like our Young Strings program, which was founded by one of our orchestra members who passed away last year. And we also had Eduardo Mata as our music director for a long time. So in some ways, Dallas was on the cutting edge early on, but then sort of, just didn't focus on equity, diversity, inclusion in the same way as it should have. And likewise, in the women's sphere, Dallas had 3 different board chairs who are women, lots of great leadership in the community. I would argue that in many cases, the women of Dallas built the great arts institutions financially, the museums, the theater center, the performing arts, the Dallas Symphony. So with all that, I felt like it was in the DNA of our orchestra to move forward in a meaningful and expedient way in equity, diversity, inclusion, and also in leading the way with women, because as we all know, it's been a paternalistic industry to a large extent, not in every way, but certainly on the podium, less so in the orchestra itself, or our orchestra and any orchestra in the country have really had good representation in terms of women, but not as much in the principal player roles. And composers has been an ongoing challenge. So we decided to create a Women in Classical Music initiative that has many levels. One is we have an annual symposium, and we give an award to women in the industry who have moved the dial. And we ask the winner of that award to nominate someone else who is an up and coming. So we're pulling people up with us, and we give the financial award to that person and give that person a forum at the conference. And we try to build a relationship with that person on an ongoing basis as the orchestra. We also have a commitment to hire a certain number of conductors who are women in every season. And we committed to hiring a principal guest conductor who's a woman, and also a composer in residence who's a woman, so for a 10-year period. So it's a pretty big commitment, as well as 50% of all of our commissions will be by women. We're happy, but it's a lot of, work, and we've found some incredible people to work with as a result of all of this.
Right. So, and this is extraordinary work, and so impactful, clearly, for the orchestra, for the art form, for the community. And I also want to kind of tackle how you approach some of your methods of this work. But first wanted to tackle, so in addition to, for example, this gender equity, a lot of orchestras, so a lot of our viewers are leading orchestras or other arts institutions and working in various leadership administrative positions, or are practitioners in these arts organizations. And oftentimes they'll look at their community and say, here's a significant constituency, and we don't seem to be reaching them. And of course, for Dallas, I think half of the city or the community is Latinx or Hispanic. And so obviously an important community, and one in which you've been really trying to work in terms of the connectivity between the orchestra and the Latinx community in Dallas. And wondering if you could share a little of that work that you've been doing.
Certainly. So some of it ties in. For example, our composer in residence currently is Angelica Negron, who's also from Puerto Rico. So she is not only an incredible female composer, but she also allows us to connect with the Latino community in a more effective manner. But I think the real key that we've learned when we talked with people in our community was the programming, and to figure out ways to have authentic and meaningful programming for especially the Mexican community, the Mexican American community, but the broader Latino community, and artists as soloists and themed programs. And we commit every year to do a Dia de los Muertos concert which is really an important holiday in Mexico to celebrate those who have passed. And we the Consul General of Mexico, and one of their states will bring in a whole display that we'll have in our concert hall lobby for usually at least a week, depending on when they bring it in, and we do a ceremony. And I think that that's helping build the awareness to people who aren't as familiar with the Dia de los Muertos traditions. That's one example. Early this year in the season, we have Aida Cuevas as one of our soloists. She's a very famous Mexican singer and actress, and it's a very appealing person to have perform with the Dallas Symphony, because that makes a lot of people who wouldn't normally want to see the Dallas Symphony or think of the Dallas Symphony as an organization that they want to attend concerts regularly, because their favorite artist is performing with us. It makes it a lot more exciting, and we're seeing the tickets fly out the door for that. And we know that it'll be a different audience than we typically have, and we're very excited about that. But it's about building the bridge after that, right? It's not just about having one concert. And that's the hard work, is partnering in the community with the business community and building our board such that we have many Latino people on our board to help guide us, to help give us suggestions, to help connect us. So I'll stop there. I have more, but.
Right. Yeah, no, it's so awesome. And I love that piece that you added about, so we can kind of organizations can create these events or concerts or series that will bring a new audience in. But then what is that hard work of the partnering with the community and empowering community in terms of board membership and other ways that actually builds sustainability so the community is connected long after the concert. And definitely love that approach. So I was going to kind of ask about this work, right, which is clearly so important. And a lot of times some people will share with me, or you hear in the field, that they try and do work relating to DE&I and there's pushback or there's hesitancy, or, well, we just, we know music we've played for, decades or centuries, and why do we need to change anything, et cetera. And just wondering, have you, in this work that you're doing, which is clearly very forward moving, have you found pushback and or challenges, and how have you overcome them?
Well, I think many of the largest orchestras in the country have a similar challenge with, perhaps their board members, their audience, and their orchestra, the musicians themselves, to commit to some core repertoire, which is what the musicians were trained in, and obviously audiences love those favorite symphonies, as we all know. But it's not a mutually exclusive idea. So you can have some really great core repertoire, and you can pair it with music that is of the highest level by new composers, by composers from history who are Latino, and there are many great Latino composers that we have featured music over the years. And, so our orchestra knows that's great music. And I think that is the core piece, right? We want to play great music. It's, and it is a tradition because it's an orchestra, but there's a big variety of great music. And, we all have to open our minds and our ideas about how things will be done moving forward in the future, because it's a different world we live in than it was 20 years ago, 40 years ago. And, we want to be a 21st century orchestra. We want to meet people where they are. We want to have a relationship with our audience, with our community. And it's not a show and then you go home and that's the end of it. And, so that means education. So it's not simply a matter of you put on a great concert and you can put whatever programming elements you want. But if people don't understand what you're trying to do, so the education through podcasts, through pre-concert lectures, through program materials, through the constant communication with the people who live in your city, who come to your events, about what the organization is doing, what it cares about. I mean, that's integral to every single day. It's not a special project. And that is a mindset that is hard to get people into thinking about, but it's the it's the thing that takes you to the different level of relationship with people. And it starts when they're young. So education is a long pursuit, right? We're all learning things every single day, but kids need to have the opportunity to connect with being in an orchestra, having an instrument, learning music. And we have committed $1 million to a program in Southern Dallas, which is a section of Dallas that's larger than the city of Atlanta, by the way. It's a huge area, and does not have good arts, or at least good music, in the public school system. And so we're doing an after-school program, and before the pandemic, it was 500 children. And now our goal is to get to 750 this year. We've been doing it online the whole time. Obviously, that's not the same at all, but 60% of the kids participating are Latinx. So we're talking about, getting in on the ground floor, right? Getting in when people haven't formed their ideas or thoughts about anything, and they're just excited because they have a violin or a cello or an oboe or a trumpet. And we hired someone from the El Sistema program to be the artistic director. And honestly, it's the most inspiring thing to see, so much so that I actually am taking cello lessons, because I saw these kids in 6 months become so good just from daily lessons. Literally had never even touched a cello. And I was kind of like, gosh, if they can do it, I really should just not be lazy and start doing something.
Awesome, awesome. Well, this is all phenomenal work, clearly, that you're doing leading the orchestra. Unfortunately, we're just about out of time, but I always like to ask, some of this work, right, it's got to be some days that are incredibly challenging and potentially even almost overwhelming. What do you draw upon for sources of strength, for inspiration when times are the toughest as a leader?
I just think about the music and the collective, what it takes to make great music. And we all have a role. And, my role is not to play the music, but to facilitate as many people as possible having the opportunity to hear great music on a regular basis. And, it's the hard part of the job is getting everyone on the same page. But when it happens, it's so rewarding.
Mhm. Well, Kim Noltemy, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Aaron.